Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping and wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So the question today is, can I wholesale a foreclosure property? So this is a little complicated. If you stay to the end, I'm going to explain to you how I might be able to help you understand some of these things more. But first we sort of have to explain what the foreclosure process is, what a foreclosure property means, and then what really wholesaling means. So wholesaling, let's deal with first. That's easy. Wholesaling is getting a property under contract with a seller and then assigning that contract to usually a cash buyer who's going to maybe do the work on it or keep it as a rental, that kind of thing. Now, foreclosure is complicated. So this is how it works in New York. It's a very, very long process in New York. So somebody stops paying their mortgage, they get a notice of default, then they get a lis pendens, which means that the lender is basically saying we're proceeding with a foreclosure process. That process can take a long time. It can take 10 years. I know I tell people in other states that number, they can't believe it. In Texas, this takes like 45 days, but it can take a long time. So when you say you're wholesaling a foreclosure property, if the property is just early, like pre-foreclosure or just got a list pendants on it, you certainly can wholesale it. But the issue you're going to have many times with the seller, is whether he owes so much that it doesn't make sense for you to buy it if he owes more than you're willing to buy it for. So, for example, the guy owes $400,000 on the house. You need to buy it at $300,000 to make some money on it. That's a problem that happens often, very often. So you certainly can do it, but in that situation where the guy owes more than you're willing to pay, you need a short sale. Now, that takes a long time too. So the foreclosure process takes a long time. You don't need it to play out. A person could sell their property anytime during the foreclosure process. There's no problem. But a short sale process can also take a long time. So the short sale process, I wasn't going to get into short sales, but just because we're talking about it, that's going to the lender and saying, hey, the balance is $400,000. I have a buyer who wants to pay $300,000. The house really is only worth $300,000. Do you approve that? That takes a long time. You got to send a lot of paperwork. They got to see a contract. There's a lot more involved in that. But in general, you can absolutely wholesale a property that's in the foreclosure process. Now, what a lot of people define as a foreclosure property is a property that's already been foreclosed on. So what happens is at the end of this process, the bank will then take the property at auction. And I went to auction every single Tuesday for 4 years in Nassau County. And they will then offer this property out to the public. But the bank usually has an upset price. Where they come up with that upset price, what the upset price is, you don't even know till the minute they have it up on the auction block. And very, very often, their auction price is more than any investor wants to pay. And that happens a lot. And then what happens, so if, let's say their auction price is reasonable, an investor will buy it, it'll sell to a third party. That process takes a couple of months. And then the seller will then the property's gone. It's owned by an investor. If you bought it at the auction, it's your property. And then that investor, if there's somebody in the house, will have to negotiate with them to leave. If it's vacant, the investor can start doing work on it to fix it up, that kind of thing. So if you go to an auction and you buy it, you have an ability, you have to put 10% down with the cashier's check or cash at the day of the auction. And then you can assign the bid, I've did this a few times, to somebody else if you can make some money on it. That is an option. So I guess you can call that wholesaling a foreclosure property. What happens very often, though, is that the property goes back to the plaintiff. In other words, the bank takes possession. The bank says, our upset price is $400,000. Nobody there wants to pay that. Back to the plaintiff. That happens probably majority of the time. So it's one of the reasons why I don't go to auctions anymore, because you never know what the hell the upset price is going to be, and it takes forever to do all this research on the auction, and you don't know if you're ever going to get anything or not. Even if you can make a bid on something, someone can outbid you. That's another topic for discussion, not for today. So once it goes back to the bank, then it becomes REO, real estate owned. So those properties are offered all the time. Those are a lot of the properties you see in Nassau County that are condemned. They have a red X on them. They're already bank owned, and the bank is not going to give you a deal on it as an investor. The bank is going to give it to a realtor, and there are a bunch of the same guys: Michael Kendrick from Century 21, Todd Jovino from Island Advantage. You see the same names all the time. They are going to list that property for sale, and anybody can buy it. It's a simple sale at that point from the lender to you. So during this long process before it actually goes to the bank, you can absolutely wholesale a foreclosure property. So someone says, hi, I'm in foreclosure. That happens all the time. I'm in foreclosure. Can you buy my property? I need to close quickly. I'm afraid. I don't want to screw up my credit anymore. And if they owe less than you want to pay, or you can agree with terms, then it's a simple process. You go to contract. You can then assign that contract to somebody else. No problem whatsoever. If it's already a bank owned, more complicated. You see a lot of things on auction sites, so like Hubzu and Zome, it's XOME, Hudson and Marshall, auction.com. You'll see those. Those are harder to wholesale because when the bank sells it to you, the language, you're not allowed to change any language in the contract. The contract usually says you cannot sell it. You can't even sell it, I think, for 3 months or 9 months. There are ways around that. The way that I recommend is that you buy it in an LLC and then you sell the interest of the LLC. Therefore, you're not selling the property, you're selling the interest in the LLC. It's very hard for them to stop that. But they have to agree to sell the property to a brand new, newly formed LLC. So I'll usually form an LLC with the name of the property. That's a $1 million tip right there. But you absolutely can wholesale foreclosure properties. It's just where in the process of the foreclosure is it. So once it's, if you buy it at the auction, I know Nassau and I believe most towns in Suffolk will allow you to assign the bid, which is basically a wholesale assignment of the bid. But you better get it cheap. And you got to think about this because I went to the auction for like I said, every Tuesday for 4 years. I really was rarely able to buy things cheap enough that I could then make any money assigning it to someone who's going to rehab it. Because a lot of the other people are rehabbers. A lot of the other people are rehabbers. So they're going to bid the rehabber price. If I bought it, it's unlikely to be cheap enough that I can then wholesale it. So the real way to get good wholesale properties is to go direct to seller, which is what I've been spending the last 5 years doing. Marketing direct to sellers, finding people that are likely to sell for whatever reason, either because of a situation in their life or a situation with the property, and then getting that under contract at a deep enough discount that I can then wholesale an off-market property to a cash buyer, rehabber, landlord kind of situation. So that is the way to get wholesale properties. To go the foreclosure route is usually an exercise in futility because a lot of them owe more than you can pay. And if you want to go through the short sale route, it's fine. I hate it. I've done some, but I can't stand them. That's A. B is if you're going to compete in the auction land or at auctions, you are competing with other people who are going to rehab. It's unlikely for you to get the property cheap enough that you can make money by assigning it to somebody else. Sweet Moses. Now, so that's B. And C is if afterwards, if it's bank owned already, then it's out into the open in the public and it's listed for sale. I've said this before, and I'm sure I'm going to do a lot more videos on them. Very unlikely to get a deal on a property that's listed for sale. Very unlikely to get a deal cheap enough to wholesale. You might get a deal that you can rehab. Remember, there's a gap between what a wholesaler will pay and what a rehabber will pay. That's your assignment fee, right? If I buy something for $420 and I think a rehabber will pay $450, I can try to make 30 grand on it. But once it's out in the open on an open market and it's listed, it's very unlikely, considering everyone can see it and everyone has access to it, for you to get it cheap enough that you can then wholesale it. Also, let's think about this. Let's say you buy something and you get it for $420 and you think a rehabber will pay $450. If he looks online and sees it listed for $429, he's probably not going to pay you more than that. It's just a mental thing. Well, it happens with a lot of people. Some people won't care, but some people will. So anytime a seller calls me and says, hey, my property's listed, I immediately say to them, listen, if it's listed, we're probably not going to be able to do business. Now, at that point, sometimes they'll go, why? And I'll say, because I have to buy it at a discount. If you have it listed at a price and it's not selling for that price, chances are I'm not going to be, the difference between what I want to pay and what you want it for it is going to be too great. So that did happen recently where a person had it listed for $699,000, and I looked at it and I said, listen, you don't need to sell it to an investor. Just drop the price to $599. You'll sell it right away. She said, no, I want you to come. She had an issue. I bought it for $450. 2 days later, I sold it for $575. So sometimes that happens. But when you push back on a seller and you say, hey, listen, it looks like we're not going to do business, that's when everything becomes clear. I went through like the 3 most beautiful sentences, which are, I'm an investor. I have to buy at a discount to make money. We're probably not a good fit. Those are the most beautiful sentences ever that you could say to someone because it uncovers the truth. If someone's not serious, they go, you're right. I want full top dollar for it. Goodbye. And if there is a truth, then they'll say, wait a second, there's a problem here. I have 27 uncooperative tenants living in the basement. sorry, in the case that I told you before, it was that she had unpermitted additions that she just didn't want to deal with buyers for. So you find out the truth when you push back. You always want to push back. When you push away from a seller, that's when they come to you. When you yell at them, I'll close in 24 hours, I'm the greatest thing ever, you got to sell to me, that's when they push away from you. You want them to come towards you. And the way to do that, and it's counterintuitive, is to push away from them and say, I don't think we're a good fit. I don't even know if I want to buy the house. Those are the kinds of things you want to say over the phone or in person. So if you want more help on how to figure these things out, you can go to howtoflipnewyork.com. I have a course that I sell on it that I think I'm going to revamp pretty soon, and it's howtoflipnewyork.com/course. Also, if you're interested in coaching, you can go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you like these videos, wherever platform you're watching them, please give me a thumbs up. The like really helped. And please keep the comments coming. Any comments you have, there are no bad comments. So if it's an easy answer, I'll just respond with an answer. If it's a topic that I handled or I did a few videos on, I'll just send you links to the videos. And if it's something new or something I haven't handled in a while, I might do a video on it based on your comments. So keep the comments coming. I really appreciate them. And thank you for watching. I really, really appreciate you watching my videos. Thank you very much.